So
Yeah.
I've always been impressed about how like wrestling always seems to persist. Like to me, it was like this obnoxious thing in the '80s, but the fans are still there. And then I sort of started seeing it less like a physical competition and more of like this great thing of performance art. So tell me about your wrestling journey. How did you get started? How did you get into it? What's your story?
All right. So when I was younger, same thing. I would watch the old either 80s reruns or play, man, at the arcade machines. The old WrestleMania machine was amazing. Obviously, I was a kid, so everybody had to fall in love with Hulk Hogan. I used to watch the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and Lou Albano would bring people on constantly. So I'm like, oh, who's that? Who's that? And then I'm like, all right, let me keep an eye out. Um, but yeah, when I was a lot younger, I was way more into it. And then in the 90s, everyone was watching it, but it wasn't really like my thing with two TVs in the house. It's like, hey, mom, can I steal TV for, 3 hours to watch, Raw? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll talk to kids about it later and act like I know. Um, but then there was just a lot of nothing for about 10 years. And then Mike Goldstein came to me and he goes, hey, I'm doing a wrestling show. I need you on it. I said, I don't even know. I just need like support staff if you can help out. I said, cool. I'm going to be at the convention anyway. Let's do this. And then it was probably like the third or fourth cosplay pro wrestling show they ever did. And I'm like, all right, this is awesome. When are we doing another one? And he's like, I think it might have been like one more show that year. And he goes, after that, come with me. There's a facility close by. It's only about a half hour in Berlin, New Jersey. And we can train. And started working with this guy, Jim Molyneux, who used to work for ECW. And I trained at Old Time Wrestling for about 2 years. Then they had a move, which was unfortunate, and I was without a place to train for quite a while. And then,
So that's interesting in your story. That so you didn't do like wrestling in high school. You just went right into the performance stuff.
yeah, I did three sports in high school. I did football, lacrosse, and golf, and then I played a year of lax in college, but didn't do any. I never did like wrestling or like kickboxing training or classes like at gyms or anything. I did do karate for a while, but that was like when I was really young. But I always loved making movies. I actually ended up going to school for television. So I done like a lot of amateur acting, and wrestling being like this performance art was kind of like, oh, okay, so this is just another way to, I guess, show my acting chops. Like I can be athletic, I can get exercise, I can run around, but then also I can like be like this larger than life kind of like theater character during shows.
And I imagine that's what kind of like makes it more engaging than even regular theater or any kind of performance is that you're getting that instant feedback with the audience. And it's also the sense that like I assume that there's a broader outline, but at the same time there's like it really is like the fusion of athletic competition, performance art, and improvisation.
Oh yeah. Luckily I don't have to do a lot of mic work, but yeah, improv is huge because sometimes you can go out scheduled. I've done a few just like um indie wrestling circuit shows, and they're like, all right, cool. This is just going to be like a simple squash match to get like this new villain to be like this like unstoppable force, but just try to win over the crowd. And I walked out and immediately just got booed into oblivion. And I'm like, aces, let's okay, let's start talking smack, and then completely flip the script. Because at any given time, you can only use what the audience has given you. And it's not easy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not the best at controlling the audience, but there's definitely a skill to like reacting and setting the pace for them to respond to. And like, even if you're not into wrestling, seeing it live, even in like a small indie show with like 100 people in the audience, is completely different than watching it on TV, because it's just you're there, you're invested, and I don't know, it's something about just seeing the live performance. Like, it's on TV, it's recorded live, but like knowing that, oh man, if I see something like that and that might not be scripted or scheduled properly, literally anything can happen at any given moment.
It's that sort of electricity that kind of like makes people lifelong fans, and why wrestling may have its up and downs, but it never goes away.
Mm-hmm. And then you like, even in like the professional circuit, you'll have trends. You'll have the champ will be hot and everybody will love it, or like he's hated and people were like, all right, I'm just gonna tune out for a little while and then I'll come back, and then next thing you know, even in like 2 months, you're like, whoa, a completely different show. But with the Cosplay Pro Wrestling, what's great is you don't have to build a character. You don't have to build trust with the audience, because we have Johnny as Mario, we have Trent's Luigi, we have so many like names that are already established in their own canon. It's just like, you can walk out for your first match and they're like, oh my god, dude, there he is. And it's like the first time a new Avenger comes in, like after a movie, everyone's like, oh man, I wonder who they're gonna bring in. And then it's like, what do we have? We had Killmonger come out and people just went nuts. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, we kind of liked him better than Panther in that movie. So yeah, it's good to see him back. But you have this built-in fan base just from showing up, and it really takes the pressure off your shoulders, because you're like, now I can just focus on me. I don't have to talk with the audience. I don't have to like worry about all these like little intricacies outside. It's just me and the opponent in the ring, and making sure that everything goes as planned and you keep each other safe, and that the audience is just going to be there for the ride and have a good time.
So this is a really interesting thing that I've always been curious about, is like the intersection between nerd, and it seems like that's what this Cosplay Pro Wrestling is like the intersection between nerd culture and wrestling. Because originally in like the early 90s, like wrestling was like, oh, this is the biggest jock thing because it's all these guys who are like in their leotards and this is athletic competition. But like, as time, there's been more crossover where like, hardcore Dragon Ball Z fans are also big wrestling fans. And then you got the Xavier Woods, that famous wrestler in WWE currently. And he's got a YouTube channel where he does Let's Plays. And he did that big famous thing where he came out in like the, what was it? The DBZ, the Saiyan armor. And that got a huge reaction. And I guess, what do you think is the sort of innate quality that like makes these two cultures that seem like they have nothing to do with each other connect?
Woods from the New Day, man, they love their anime. There's a lot of guys that have stuff. There's I can't remember his name, but the Twitter handle, the Great Black Otaku, he's wrestling right now, I think in Ring of Honor, and his finisher is A Cruel Angel's Thesis, which is the Evangelion theme. And it's just like, just hearing the announcer say it with like no background on his part, and you're like, oh man, this is so cool. And then Woods also, Mega Ran, the nerd rapper, he's worked with them on 4th of July special. He was on national TV. They came to MagFest last year.
Oh, really?
So he had them. Yeah, they had him at MagFest. And they did like a show, and I'm like, dude, this is insane. But as for the crossover, there was a really good video by Max Landis called "Wrestling Isn't Wrestling."
Yeah, I love that video. That's what
And
kind of changed
yeah,
that, and what you did changed my perspective entirely.
he said wrestling is mythology, wrestling is superheroes, wrestling is comic books, and that's what it is. It's just an overblown like personality. It's like, let's just find one character trait and like just send it to the moon. And it's just it's a men's soap opera is what it is. There's a lot of arguing. There's a lot of that was my wife, your boss is firing you, except instead of, they just slap each other a few times and then someone goes off and cry, they're like, fight me for it. And they're like, all right, yeah, let's fight for it. And then your evil twin comes back and you're like, oh, I thought he was dead. And you're like, no. But yeah, it's just, it's a comic book soap opera. And there was like, in the 80s, it was really flashy. Everyone had bright, it was the 80s to begin with, but like every character was like, had like a real gimmick. Like, Roddy Piper wore a kilt. Then you had the Road Warriors were literally Mad Max characters. Like everything was overblown. And then the Attitude Era was awesome, just because of like the actual, like the performers there. But character wise, everyone just, I'm a really buff guy that's angry that wears black. I also wear black. I too, and it just, they had to do that much better because just at a glance, they all look the same, even though like Rock, Stone, because some of those guys are like the biggest names of all time, but they kind of lost their like flash. And then recently some guys have been coming back with stuff. You've got the New Day comes out in like the craziest, most absurd color scheme with unicorn horns on, eating cereal. We have the Fiend, so we got a new masked character. Before that, he had the Wyatt family, and they were like this cult from like the Bayou. But we've gotten more illustrated characters back, and I think it's really good for not just wrestling, but just for television in general. You don't want to watch. You want someone you can relate to, but you don't want them to be so relatable that they're just too boring or flat. I want to see some flash, some pop. I want something that's a little different than my everyday.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting observation. That like, and I guess that's sort of wrestling is reality, but it's a heightened reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's somewhat more grounded than like a straight up fictional thing, it makes it feel more real, even if it is in a heightened reality where, the boss's daughter gets drugged and kidnapped, forced to be married on live television.
But yeah, like you have, whenever you watch sports, like right now, NFL's in the playoffs, or Conor McGregor is coming back to UFC, and you'll have like the news analyst talking about, oh, the storyline for this fight. Like there is, even in like sports that are occurring, at a specific time, there's nothing, predetermined about it. There still is a narrative like, oh, he's coming out of retirement to face someone that he never beat, or this coach is going against the team he used to play for. Will that? And there is storylines inside of, sports, but to be able to choose that storyline in wrestling is really cool. Because like, if someone's like, oh man, this guy's undefeated. If only he could win one more, then we could really have, this underdog chant. We could have like a real Rocky moment. And then like, if they fall short, you can't help it. But in wrestling, you can go, no, the crowd's loving it. Let's tease them for a little bit. And then, you know what? We'll wait till a pay-per-view and give them what they want, and they're going to go nuts. And then everyone's on the edge of their seat, and they're like, they already know who's going to win. And you're like, yeah, just because the writers do, I don't know if I'm going to be satisfied with this. If I'm going to be, if the guy I want to win goes over and I'm super excited because of that, or if the guy I want to win loses, and then that's a whole nother story. Like, you can have like a depressing ending or a downer ending and still have a good like storyline. But yeah, just being able to choose what you want is like this whole new dynamic in sports. Cause like I love when you can go to ESPN, you can go, football, basketball, whatever, and then it'll be like college, professional, international. Then you can go to combat sports and it'll say UFC, boxing, kickboxing, Olympics, WWE on ESPN, and they'll write articles and treat it no different than in normal sports. And it's just cool to see, like, someone's hard work pay off, or I guess conversely, if someone does end up getting injured, hey, are some injuries part of the story to give a guy time off with his family if he needs it, but sometimes, like, they are like, you could still get hurt in the ring, and if you do, it's like, well, we got to sideline what we had planned for the next 6 months because you need to recover, and we don't want to lose the face of the franchise.
Yeah, that's always been what really interests me, is also about wrestling, is the performance art aspect, in the sense that, like, sure, this isn't like a UFC fight where it's like two guys who are really going at it, but at the same time, throwing some guy 10 feet in the air into a mat, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely a huge physical toll that comes with it.
Oh yeah, some days, like, I could practice, like, I would train for like 2-3 hours on certain nights, and at the end of the day or even the next morning, I'm like, oh, I feel great. It's just because everything went well. And then you could just be in a 10-minute match and then just slip up like the slightest bit and not land absolutely correctly, or lose your place in the ring and land bad, and you're like, oh, I already feel it. I'm going to feel that tomorrow, and I'm going to feel it the rest of the week. A lot of wrestling is on the other guy. It's trusting him to put you in a safe position. So it's like, even though I'm the one taking the hit, he's the one putting me into the position safely. Like, if you just did just a choke slam, so you just lift me up straight and then throw me onto my back. One, we both got to get height, but we both have to be at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to really get your hands up under my chin. Two, if you lean me back too much, I could over rotate. Instead of landing flat on my back, I could land more to my head or more to my feet, and then I whiplash. Yeah, it's a lot of trust, and working with someone that you don't know or you haven't worked with before can really put a toll on you, or just mental strain when you go out there. Like, I know he's good. I've heard about him. My friend highly suggests him, but just because I don't have any experience, it does feel weird. Like, I've trained with a bunch of guys and I've gotten like way more comfortable with them. But when in the shows that I've done, it's always like the same 3-4 opponents that I face, just because it's like, that's who I'm comfortable with. That's who I know I can work with. And I know they're not going to put me in a bad position. And the same on their part. They know that I'm not going to try anything that I'm not comfortable with and endanger them.
There's a huge amount of trust and safety and sort of physical rapport built with, when you're in the ring with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I was kind of curious is that, like, I feel like, especially now that we're seeing, like, wrestling is the ultimate crucible. Like, it will break you down physically, it'll drain you mentally, but if you get through it, then you're basically the ultimate performer. Because you think about The Rock. Like, he just spent all those years, and now he's just dominating everything. He has the same enthusiasm, whether it's a shitty kids movie or a big blockbuster like Jumanji or, the Adult Ballers series. And he just brings that exact same enthusiasm, and he just conquers everything. And then you look at Dave Bautista, who's, like, on his rise. And, you know, whether, no matter where you are on the political spectrum about Donald Trump, who's a little bit of a controversial figure for a lot of reasons, where did he build that cult of personality? Oh, he was in the freaking wrestling ring.
Yeah, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. There was a whole arc with him and McMahon for a while, and then he shaved his head in the ring. It can, even for non-wrestlers, it can do a lot for you. Or even if your first profession wasn't wrestling. Ronda Rousey's one, as well as Kurt Angle was a Olympic gold medalist, and then he's like, what do I do now? I'm a little too old to, keep going in the Olympics. So like, we're gonna bring you here, make you a new American hero. Boom, and he was great. Trying to think other like non-wrestlers in the ring.
Jesse Ventura is another really great example.
Yeah, became governor and then also was acting in movies. But yeah, with The Rock, it's funny. You still call him The Rock. He, for the longest time, he kept that name. It was with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. In case you didn't know, his first name was Dwayne. But like, you're never gonna say. I mean, his promotional material now just says Dwayne Johnson. But if you said, "Oh, is that the new one that has The Rock in it?" No one's gonna question you, even though he hasn't been a main story character in almost 20 years. It's just propelled him to a whole nother level, and he still puts in that personality in everything he plays. Like, he still has a hint of The Rock in everything he does, even though he's no longer playing that part. But yeah, it's just great. Batista was in he was in one of the new Bond movies recently, or 2 ago, I think.
Which one? Well, obviously, he's most famous for Guardians of the Galaxy, and now he's like doing the kids-friendly movie, which seems like every action personality, that's like the rite of passage. You have to do the family-friendly movie where you're a badass secret agent and you have to like take care of a kid.
The Tooth Fairy, or what was that? Yeah, that one. But yeah, a lot of guys, and then there's some that try to make the jump. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I can act," and then the movie bombs, or it's kind of like a straight to DVD kind of thing, and it just doesn't pick up enough momentum. Like, they're 2 completely different skill sets, even though they do. If you're good, they can complement each other. Because there's guys that are great in the ring, great at improv, put on, play the same character for years, and then are just a little flat with really scripted, structured stories. Then you have guys that are just like, you'll have an actor or an athlete come in to wrestling and they're like, "Oh man, they look so stiff and nervous." It's like seeing a first-time host on SNL and you're like, I know they're the biggest name in Hollywood right now, but it shows you how, pre-recorded or, set takes can help you, rather than just trying to do something live after practicing it for only like 2 or 3 days. And not to mention, if you're wrestling, you're traveling around the country. So it's like, all right, so we had a show Monday. All right, gonna have recoup Tuesday. We're gonna travel Wednesday, Thursday. You're gonna hear the new idea Friday, Saturday, Sunday we'll practice, and Monday we got to go for it again. And it's just a constant, just recycling, just 1, 2, 3, and then you're back at it. And you got to be able to adapt, and you can't get too set in your place because you're constantly on the move.
And it's, I guess, that sort of
super busy schedule.
That trial by fire, that sort of trial by fire that like refines you and turns you into a John Cena in The Rock over time.
Yeah, there's definitely no slow starts, because there's levels below it, but once you reach that top tier, there's still places, you could be like the lower guy on, WWE or AEW and still have places to go, but you're expected the same amount as everybody else, even if you're only in the ring for like 2 or 3 minutes, and it's strenuous, body and mind.
And I was also so I know you kind of like are one of the runners of Cosplay Pro Wrestling, but it sounds like you didn't originally originate it. I'm curious about the origins and like a history of how it got started and where it's come and where it's going now.
Okay. Yes, Mike Goldstein started it. A friend of mine, maybe six years ago now.
What was the genesis and like what he thought like?
So, oh man, I don't remember which game it was. A new Pokemon had just launched. Sylveon was announced. You know, with its bows and it's pink and it's new Eevee fairy typing. And he goes, "Oh man, I need a new cosplay for Otakon." So he goes, "I'm gonna be Shawn Michaels, but as a Pokemon. I'm gonna be the Heartbreak Pokemon." So he wore like he made a cosplay, and he had like this little pink, underoos. He didn't. I'm like, Mike, Shawn Michaels has the long pants. Like that's like his thing. He goes, "Nah, but I like this better." And I'm like, okay. And then he bought, boots that went up to his knee. He basically made Sylveon the wrestler. And yeah, I thought it came out pretty good. It was pretty funny. But it went on like one of those like ranker pages as top 10 cringiest Pokemon cosplays. Yeah.
So he got a lot of attention.
Yeah. Mike's a pretty big dude, but in the middle of summer, when you're really pale, you notice, and I'm one of those guys. But yeah, so he's like, "Oh, cool, man. Well, great. I spent about $10 on material at Michael's to make the glasses and the ribbon things for Sylveon, and then I spent about $200 something on this wrestling gear I can't use because no character I'm gonna run is gonna wear pink. What can I do?" And a friend of his was like, "Oh man, that's awesome. What if you did like CM Pikachu?" And then they just came up with like Pokemon pun names. Haunter Hearst Helmsley, Rick Flareon, and then we're like, stop. We got to find a way to use this. And Mike's like, "I can just rent a ring and we'll just throw a show, like an indie show, but we'll do it with characters that already exist." And we talked to KatoriCon in Gloucester County, and they're like, "Aces, let's do this." And Mike's like, "All right, cool." So they said yes, and they were like, "Yes to what?" He goes, "It's this new idea. We've never done it before, so we're going to try it out." I think we had 1 or 2 shows there, and then we had an Assassin's Creed gimmick. So someone was Connor, and he brought a wagon of hay into the ring, and then jumped off the top turnbuckle and dove into the hay, and then proceeded to throw it everywhere. Because it like all splashed out, it got all over the ring, and they're like, "All right, so let's," they brought a broom, brushed it off the ring, but then all the tiny bits started floating in the air, and we're in an auditorium inside, and everything starts getting hazy, and everyone's like coughing. We're like, this immediately I thought that was a funny little spot there, but this immediately backfired. And they're like, "Yeah, we can't have you messing up stuff." And we're like, all right, the hay was a bad idea, guys. I'm sorry. Promise, we'll never do it again.
Did the audience at least like it?
Oh, they thought it was hilarious. I think it was like right after Black Flag came out, or 3 or something. One of the ones.
American Trilogy.
Yeah, and and we're like, "Listen, it was a bad call on us. The crowd ate it up. And honestly, the rest of it nothing was out of control. No one got hurt, and the other matches went fine." We're like, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll see what's going on." And we haven't been back since. In their defense, it was on it was on a stage. It was in like a play auditorium, and you're like, oh, that sounds great. Except you only have people on one side, and you're already kind of raised high, and then you raise it on a stage, so now people are kind of looking up from underneath. Until they got, I think it was more of like after the first year is like, all right, we're gonna tell them no for a year, but in all honesty, we need to find a better place to do it if we bring it back. But they haven't moved to a new venue yet, and they always seem to throw it on the same week as MagFest, and half of our people are there, and we're like, yeah, we just can't swing it until either the date or venue changes. But yeah, the origins was that Sylveon cosplay, and then just riffing Pokemon puns, and then from there he's like, all right, man.
What was the reaction?
No. Yeah.
What was the reaction to the first show with like the Pokemon?
Oh, it was great. I mean, every show we have people that haven't seen it before, but like nobody knew what to expect. Like they're like, oh yeah, it's wrestling, but they thought it was going to be like more of like, I guess more of a theater performance, or kind of more backyard, like not, oh, this is like legit pro wrestling. I didn't know if they're like, oh man, do you guys need new people? Because I got like this sick. Or like, are you trained? Have you done this? Like, oh, I didn't. And we're like, no, like this is dead serious. Like, the fact that like some of the like you always have your different entrance clothes, and then you're like, oh man, it looks just like him. And then by the time you wrestle, it's like, oh, I'm just in a pair of shorts. But you lose the character. But like a lot of people just think, or like, we're just cosplayers, or they met us there that day, and we're like, no, there's you always get like these weird like unsuspecting responses from people. But yeah, that first time everyone went in blind, and they came out and they're like, all right, so we had like one fight to start it off, and then another prelim, and they're like, this is for the Smash Brothers world title. And then they're like, what? And then we brought character. We have 3 titles. We have the Pokemon League champion, which is only winnable by a Pokemon. The Smash title, which can only be won by someone in the roster of Smash. And then tag team, which is basically anyone else that comes up. So like if we have Marvel characters come up, we always put them in a team. And that's usually how we do that. But yeah, they just no idea. And one of the other head guys, Noah Houlihan, has run +2 comedy for like over a decade. And they do nerd comedy stand-up, but they also run a ton of panel work. He has a game show he runs. But at the end of all their things, he goes, you can ask us anything. And he goes, you can ask, where do we get our start? How do you get into comedy? Or if you just want to know who would win in a fight between, Goku and Superman. And we're like, well, we can do that for real now. So who's hot? And they're like, I don't know. Let's Google top 10 anime on Crunchyroll. And then Mike will be like, hey, I need you to dress up as so-and-so. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. He goes, go to Crunchyroll top 10. It's the third guy with the blue hair. And I'm like, all right, I guess that's what we're but like you'll always have the iconic characters. Like anyone in Smash has been around for years.
Yeah.
In their own things. But depending on what con we go to, if it's an anime con or a gaming con, we'll just look to try to have at least one new character every show to keep up with whatever's super popular at the time, and then mix that in with our regular roster
of like sort of rotating characters. And so how do you determine the storylines? Because I've seen like a few shows, and I love how like there's like the ongoing feud between the Mario brothers, where they split up and then they come back, and then Princess Peach rips them apart and she's Team Rocket. What goes in towards of sort of plotting? Because how many shows do you do a year per like various cons?
7 or 8. I think this year we had 8. Last year we had 7. Try to get like it would be nice to have one like every other month, but they tend to get like clumped together. Like sometimes it's like 2 a month, and then 2 a month, and then 2 months with nothing. But summer's a little more busy. Winter's kind of slow. Spring starts off real hot. There's Lancaster. So you got Zenkai, Castle Point, and then in the fall you have a couple at the end. But as for storylines, that's all Mike. What happens is people will go, they'll come up with like a new character or like a cosplay that they're doing for a con. They're like, listen, I have this. I can make it work in the ring. I'll switch the pants out to something I can move in. And he's like, all right, cool. So that'll be I'll just call them the filler matches. Like there's no belt, there's no title on the line, but we could show off a bigger cast, and you guys can really go nuts with like no repercussion. Like you can tell me how you want this to end because it's not going to like affect. It's not going to have like a snowball effect on everything else. But as for the story, that's all Mike, and he started. And I don't think he's ever had a title in anything. A lot of indie promoters will be like, it's my show, I'm going to pick the winner. I'm like, yeah, well, obviously you're going to pick the winners. And it's always like themselves and like one other guy. And Mike's like, I bought the belt, so I held it first, and then I've never won it again. And I'm like, so props to Mike. But yeah, most of it centers around Giovanni. Noah, Mike, and me are pretty much Mike's at every show, but one of us three or two of us three will always be there, regardless of whoever can or can't show up. So it usually centers around a Giovanni story. Giovanni is our Vince McMahon. So even if he doesn't have the belt or someone that's working for him does, he's the one devising the narrative. He'll be like, all right, the belt was lost today, but you know what? No title fight because I don't want to lose it. And it could be like
he's like your Vince McMahon, right?
Yeah. And he'll just go, yeah, I don't feel like Pikachu fighting today. He had a long weekend. It's a big party con. And then it's like, well, no, Mo couldn't make it this weekend, so we can save the fight. And then people will come in and they'll be excited to see it, and then you wave it off, and then they'll be like, oh, well, now I got to come to the next one because they can only do that so many times. But yeah, a lot of it's the stories are all based around. I mean, obviously the 3 titles, so it's whatever the feud is in Smash, whether the Mario Bros are together or against each other. The Pokemon belt was like Giovanni's goal until he finally got his prize Pikachu. And then once he lost the belt, he's been like out of control of the Pokemon title. So now it's been in other hands. It went to Charlotte Flareon most recently. But now they're in control of that. We have a couple new Pokemon puns that are coming in. And as for the tag team, that's all centered around Marvel, basically. Because that's where we can get the whole Avengers in. Or it's weird. We have a whole bunch of Marvel heroes, but then a whole bunch of DC villains. We've had a Scarecrow. I did the Riddler once, but he was just a manager. Bane. I guess anti-hero. We got Red Hood. But then for Marvel, like we don't have. I mean, a lot of their villains like are one and done. Like, okay, Iron Man. Okay, Jeff Bridges dies, and then Iron Man 2, Mickey Rourke, he's done. And then it's like every movie is a completely new person until
I guess Thanos is the only one
until
that's
Thanos.
really,
Yeah, like everybody was just one and done. The only villain we have was Killmonger. But yeah, so we have those guys, and then if at any point someone can't make it or we run out of cosplays to make up, it's like, all right, boom, Team Rocket is the tag team today, and you always have a set opponent. But yeah, so each of the storylines is basically built around which fandom we can cater to.
I guess that depends on the con, if it's a video game con or an anime con or just a general con. Which has been the biggest one that you've done regularly? Because I was introduced to you at Castle Point. Your presence single-handedly elevated Castle Point, in my opinion, because I thought, oh, it's a cute little college girl. Oh my God, what is this?
Yeah. Well, we used to say that Too Many Games was our WrestleMania each year because there was like a lot. They have a good amount of money to throw around, and they always have like these fame-ish people come in, like internet celebs. We've had 2 matches where Mega Ran has tag team with Mega Man in the ring, and they went against Waluigi and Wario, and then another one where he teamed up with Mega Man and Keith Apicary against Team Rocket, and that just Nathan Barnett is just hilarious. He cracks me up, and then just put that physical humor in the wrestling ring. And those people, like, I don't know what it is about that, like out of Philly area, they just love wrestling in general. And that's what's crazy about half the fans are like wrestling fan that's also at the convention. But then you have people that are like there for the convention. I know nothing about wrestling, but I know Smash or I know Mortal Kombat. And then Liu Kang gets in the corner and does a bicycle kick. You're like, oh, I know that one. But that probably has like the best audience because everyone there really wants to see what's going on. But the biggest audience by far is Anime Next.
Is that the one in Atlantic City?
Mm-hmm. They put us right in the atrium next to the entrance to the train station. And it's just we're ground floor, and then there's 1, 2, 3 floors that are just all open to the air. And you can look down, and when I say there's people on all 3 tiers, you feel like you're in a stadium because you have people on ground level, like looking straight at you. Then you have people up about 20 feet on like the mezzanine. Then you have people in what would be like the nosebleeds looking down, and you're like, this is insane, like absolutely crazy. I don't even know how to put a number on it. Like a lot of times, if you have an indie show at like a high school auditorium or like a college gymnasium, and you get like 200 people, you're like, wow, that's pretty huge. And we're like, guys, we might be pushing 1,000, like, because the con, you can get a head count. They're like, oh, there was 7,500 people here. And then you're like, well, what else was on the schedule at the same time? And they're like, there was like 2 guest panels, which were pretty big. They're in like rooms of 700. The dealer's room's always open. But no concert. And just like trying to like do like a rough crunch of the numbers, you're like, we might have had like 1,000 people like right here. And then it's deafening. And you got that high ceiling and everything's made of brick. It's just absolutely insane. Like you feel when you're there, you feel like a superstar. Like
I imagine it's like pretty much the ultimate adrenaline and euphoria. Like I've always like avoided Anime Next, just because the way I see it is the further I have to travel to a con,
Mm-hmm.
the less interest I have, or the more my tolerance goes down. But Anime Next is like what, 3,000 people or 330,000 people?
It's pretty big. I don't. Let me see if I can Google this real quick. Anime Next attendance. 11,000 in 2018.
Damn, and so you got like pretty much 1/10 of the audience of the entire people going in there.
Yeah,
yeah, I can imagine that's like a huge adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, I mean, every time you get out there, like you always have the little butterflies, no matter how many times you've done it, because it is live, it is unscheduled. You could say you get used to it, but you'll never get completely used to it. But when you go out there and you're like, well, that's a lot of eyes. This is kind of like crazy. Like, this is what I see on TV, or walking out on an NFL field and just being completely surrounded and deafened. Like, I've been at sporting events in like arenas with 20,000 people. You're like, this is what the other side feels like. This is what those 10 guys on the ground feel like looking back up, and it's just absolutely insane.
So now that it seems like you got like a rotation of like smaller to mid tier cons that you do regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any like dedicated fans who go to like every show?
Yeah, there's one guy dressed up like Chris Jericho. I don't think he missed one this year. He was at every single one. But yeah, there's a lot of like familiar faces that we see like constantly. But what's good but also kind of hurts is all the shows are in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, or I want to say, or Delaware. The biggest issue is we got accepted one year to Anime NYC, which is run by Crunchyroll.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you. Like, and that seems like because like they've done 2 years now, and the first year was really cute, but this year was like it doubled its audience. So you got accepted, but you weren't able to do it.
The issue is wrestling laws, or I guess contact sports laws, vary from state to state. And what happens is in New Jersey, they're like, if you want to hold a wrestling match, or if you have a karate tournament, or any kind of contact sport, they're like, cool, you just need to get a permit saying this is what we're doing. So like if an ambulance needs to be called, they're like, oh, you guys just didn't, you can't play it off as like actually hurting somebody. In Pennsylvania, they say you need a license to say you're running the show and a doctor on set. So we have to get like an old-timey 1940s house call and have a doctor show up for the 2 hours. New York requires you to get a permit, but also have a license that you have to have yearly, and then pay for an ambulance to be on standby for the duration of your show.
Oh.
Which is $10,000 an hour.
Oh, Jesus. Fuck.
Yeah, what happens is every state's slightly different. Maryland is similar, but not as bad, because we've tried to go to MagFest as well. And it's the same thing. So it's like we're kind of limited to where we can go, a matter of how far we can travel. We have a few guys that actually come from Ohio to like 2 or 3 shows a year, and they're like, we have the New Jersey rules in Ohio, so if you guys ever wanted to lug out there, I said, listen, we love you for coming all the way down that way, but that's also just 2 of you guys in one car. If we were to go the other way, it'd be the other 20 of us trying to get to Ohio. So we're kind of limited in how far we can actually spread out, unless some rules change, or we can cut down costs or monetize elsewhere.
Oh, that's a tragedy that you got into Anime NYC, but the New York laws, you need to spend 20 grand. And I assume Crunchyroll's not going to pony up that money, despite how successful it would be.
Yeah, it is a lot to ask for. Like, and then the other thing is, you're like, okay, yeah, and then you're not going to be like over the top, like, yeah, we need 7 rooms and this and this and this, and it's like, you can always ask for a certain thing, but we also don't want to like drill anybody for anything, because we're like, listen, we know it's gonna be rocking. We know we're gonna pull so many people that are already there, but also like no one is going to the con because we're there. Like, you can use that money to hire even a voice actor, and then somebody will be like, oh my god, I love that show, or like someone from like a Marvel Disney Plus series, and you'll have a better return on investment, with that. It's hard. Like the ring for us, ring rental plus delivery, just getting everything to the show costs like so much money, and then for all the help, like all the talent that's wrestling, I mean, most guys would do it for free because they get a free con badge. They get to enjoy the weekend. But you do like to give them something as like a gesture. But it's like, how much can we reasonably ask for without, really having a nice setup? If we get one good break and maybe could buy our own ring, and then use some of the money to buy like a little bit of atmosphere, like maybe get our own projector screen or some kind of entrance hallway, and really up the production value, where they'll be like, oh wow, this actually looks legit.
Yeah, I can imagine that would do. Oh, God, there's this great show. Unfortunately, you can't see it now. I'll send you a link when I'm done. Yeah, because there's not a lot of like nerd stuff in theater, but there's this like guy who wrote this Harry Potter parody play called Puffs. And I went at Anime NYC. I learned about him, that he has this show called Kapowie Go Go, and basically it's like a love letter to anime, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Z, Final Fantasy VII, basically all this like nerd stuff and video games combined into this like stage play. And they had they did a holiday special that was only for 2 days for the Pit Theater, and it was this ridiculous production where they had like video clips and other elements and songs and people running around with fireballs, and that kind of like sort of like theatrics. I can imagine if you could get something like that would like mesh so perfectly with what you do.
Yeah, it was. I mean, everybody's got a YouTube channel, but for like the longest time, we weren't regular enough, or we were limited to how much editing we could do, because any editing software is absurdly expensive. So it's like you're trying to make your best with what you could buy off the shelf for like $100, or what you can get for free. I was able, because I work at a school, I was able to get a teacher's rate, and it took Adobe from like $3,000 a year to like 200, and I'm like, aces, done, purchased. And it's the full deal. So I can do a multicam shoot, so we can have 4 cameras. I can sync them up when I get it back, and then just work it like a live feed. I just watch it on 4 different monitors and just click, 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 live cut between everything, and it just feels like an actual broadcast. So it looks the part. Now it's a matter of getting everyone to use the same camera.
Yeah. But
we have some people shooting on DSLRs, and they're in 1080 and they look great. And then we have 2 that are on like high end, like handy cams, but they're still, they just look a little grainy, or they're in 720. And like when you cut to that camera, you're like, oh man, this looks awesome. And then you cut to one camera for a second, you're like, can I use a different one? Nope, they're off screen and everything else. Um, but yeah, and then we can add a little bit of flair to it as well. Every episode, it'll start with the banner, and then it goes to a versus screen like Street Fighter with the 2 headshots,
Yeah.
and then gets into the match. What I want to try to add is a character select screen. So I want to have everyone's headshots, and then like the highlighter goes blink, 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 blink. And then anytime we introduce a new character, it'll be the question mark slot. And it's like,
the Smash Brothers.
Yeah. The new challenge is approaching, and you have the black outline. It just, and then you can really get that video game feel. You're like, oh yeah, it's wrestling, but it's like, oh no, okay, I feel like I'm playing what I'm watching, and then just give it the little touches to like put it over the top.
Yeah, I can see like you're always like innovating and all, but that's interesting because like I've always like I love what you do. It feels like you got like a magic golden ticket, but I'm always kind of like wondering what's like holding you back from like getting to that. And like Anime Next would have been huge for, or the Anime NYC. But I guess that's the logistics that you don't really think about when putting on a wrestling show, that like there are these restrictions where you have to have like a medical person on site or a goddamn ambulance and spend $10,000.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, that's just New York. It depends. We haven't seen a lot. Like Virginia isn't a terrible drive. I don't know anything that's super huge there though. If you go past, what do we got? See, once you go past New York, it's like 3 small states and then Massachusetts. Now Massachusetts has some stuff. PAX is big. Anything in Boston's really big.
Yeah, is Boston difficult to do?
Not sure. Haven't really looked too much into Massachusetts though, but that's a hefty drive, especially if it's for one day. That could be like 8 hours up, 8 hours back.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's
if you make a weekend out of it, it's not terrible. But then you're also asking for 20 people. You're asking for 5 rooms plus, all this, and they're like, so how much can you offer? Like, we could do 1 2-hour show. That's the other thing. Like when you have a guest, they're like, I could do 3 2-hour autograph signings, a Q&A, a panel, and then I can just like show up randomly for 2 hours and walk around the con and get like candid shots. Whereas us, like the only thing we have is that one time event. Like we usually try to do like a hype up panel the day before. So if it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll do a panel Friday night and then the show on Saturday. So we're like, hey guys, this is what's going to happen. So when you see half the hallways shut down and they say you can't walk through here, this is what's going on. We'll show off some old matches. And a new thing we started doing is we'll get like 20 poster boards, and during the Q&A in the back, or even the day of, while people are like queuing to get seats, we have like make your own posters. So like we'll tell people what half the roster is, keep some secrets, and then like people will make up signs for stuff. We debuted Isabel from New Leaf recently, and we had a lot of love for her. We had like Give 'em Hell, Isabel. There's a new governor in town, a new mayor in town, and like people are just coming up with like these great character puns that like we didn't even think of, and then having them like raise the signs just makes it feel like all the more real. But yeah, as for spreading out, like there was this year in particular was a little rough. I've been at the school, but I was kind of I'm like on the edge of like a career pivot. I might have to go back to school, do some work.
You do like athletics in school, or are you a teacher?
Yeah, I do special ed, but I'm not. I'm like the second teacher in the classroom. So in order to have like a teaching, like to be the primary, I need to get like a certification. So I'll need to go back. So I like have stuff outside of work and outside of like life to work on. Somebody else got married. Somebody else was going into I was gonna say law enforcement, and there was like a boot camp. So like half of our staff was kind of pushed away this year for good chunks of time. So I don't think we had a single new convention this year. We did have a good, like, don't get me wrong, we still had 8 shows. It was awesome. But we didn't have anybody new. We usually would like to add like a new con every year, and then maybe drop one and then come back in 2 years, and then they could be like, hey, guess who we got back? And then you get like that much of a better response next time, because people are like, oh, we missed you last year, we're glad to have you back. But yeah, hopefully 2020 slows down a little bit and we'll be able to really maybe get 10 shows and maybe add another state. But we'll definitely be on the lookout.
Cool. And so which characters have you played, and which ones have you enjoyed playing the most? Because I've seen you as Snake.
All right. The first character I ever did is I was the imposter Uncle Yo. So if you've ever went to a con, you know Uncle Yo.
Oh yeah, he's a staple. He's always doing those like smaller. You gotta, he's living the dream.
All right. So after that, I was a Rocket Grunt several times. I think almost everybody on the roster has been a Rocket Grunt at least.
That's the initiation. You got to play Rocket Grunt at some point.
Oh yeah. I did Star-Lord a few times. That's always good. I come out with the Walkman, the headphones. I want to get a mask, but the only ones I ever find are either stupidly expensive or they're like child size and they're like this. And I'm like, all right, that's not gonna like. And like, it would be funny if it was just a little undersized, but it can't be too small. I know I did one more. Oh, I did Scott Pilgrim in a few Royal Rumbles. I think that might be it for Cosplay Pro Wrestling. I've had a couple more for our indie shows. But yeah, just those 3. I have a Pokemon under wraps right now. That might be debuting, but it's based on Haunter. But I've had like 3 ideas for that character in like the past 4 months, so it could change. So I'm not going to say anything more than it's Haunter.
It's to be determined, work in progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have way too much purple gear. That's basically what it is, and now I just need to come up with a good plan. So
which has been your favorite to play, and which has been your you think has gotten the best reaction?
Star-Lord at Anime Next. It was right after Infinity War Part 1. So we come out and we're going against Rocket, and everyone boos, and then they start playing the the Avengers theme song. And Captain America walks out, everyone goes nuts. We had Winter Soldier for the first time. Everyone goes nuts. And then I came out, and then it's just a rain of boos like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like, cool, guys. Hey, remember when you loved me after Guardians?
Yeah, because everyone hated him because he screwed it up and he caused Thanos to kill everyone.
Yeah, the first time I did it was right after Guardians 2, and everyone was going nuts. And I came out to like the awesome mix, and I had instead of mixtapes, I had like 10 CDs, but it was the soundtrack, and I was just throwing them out to people, and they were going nuts. And then I just came out this time, and people were booing me, and I'm like, all right, cool, this is how it's gonna be. All right. So the match starts, and Captain America, he's going on a tear. Winter Soldier comes in. They do some like 2-on-1 moves. Everyone's going nuts. They tag me in. Still people are cheering, whatever. And I get slammed once, and everyone loses their shit. They just go, yeah! And I'm like, okay. So Rocket just took turns. I think there was like 4 of them. All 4 of them took turns doing signature finishers on me. And everyone just went crazy. You deserve it. Rain and booze. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, and like a new Rocket would tag in and he would get me like in a headlock. He goes, I'm sorry, man. They're just eating up. I'm like, do what you got to do. It's fine. And I'm like, not going to ruin them. And then as soon as it felt like I was out there for like a half hour. And then I watched it and I'm like, oh, that was only like 6 minutes. So much. But like, it felt like it was not ending. But yeah, as soon as like the crowd started to die down and get bored of me getting what was coming to me, they said, all right, cool. Do a little counter, tag out, get Captain America in here, and they'll go nuts again. So I get like one good elbow in, I make a diving tag. Captain America comes in, everybody goes nuts, and then I think it ended with 3. I did a stunner, somebody else did rock bottom. It was like all the Attitude Era. So it was The Rock, Steve Austin, and then like maybe like a Triple H pedigree or something. And then everybody went nuts, and then we came out and they had the music, and then somebody was dressed as Spider-Man, and we pulled him up into the ring and started dancing. Just a fan that was in the crowd was like, "You get up here, Spidey." But yeah, that one was probably, like I said, that was like one of the biggest cons we also had, but also like being personally cheered and booed in the same match was kind of funny.
Well, I assume that's like sort of the magic of it when you get those like spontaneous moments that you can only get in wrestling, where you get like, and that you had a fan come in as Spider-Man and he came in and he started dancing around, and I can only imagine people must have ate that up.
Oh yeah, it's great. We've had with the fans, we had Giovanni was fighting Uncle Yo one time, and the loser had to retire. Yo took Giovanni out into the crowd, and we said, all right, we're going to plant one of our personal friends in the crowd in the front row. We said, take him to him first, and we're going to take him to the audience, and we're just going to have him give Giovanni slaps. So he pulled the shirt over his head, had him all tied up, and he goes, all right, take him to him. He's going to slap him pretty good to set the tone, and then we'll see if somebody else can, not go overboard. And he set a good tone. He ended up going to like 6 or 7 people, just getting chops across the chest. And man, the crowd ate it up. Nobody abused, like nobody went like way too hard.
Everyone sort of like understood what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, they're like, listen, I know I can actually hit him, but also don't be a dick. And yeah, that was a fun one. Or I know at Castle Point one time, I know it was Ken, but I don't know if he was Ken or Link, but he just got lost in the audience one time. He just ran from the fight and just went through the crowd, and he was fighting Robin or something. I don't know what the hell was going on, but they were just having like a street fight in the crowd, and it looked like a mosh pit. Like, crowd opened up, and they're just.
I think I was there for that.
Yeah, they're just trading punches like in the audience, and I'm like, if that doesn't get you fired up, man, like, hey guys, it's here, it's in your house, man.
It's in your face.
You're
a part of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once, like, if you can get, I mean, it's always about getting the crowd excited, but if you can get them like personally invested and actually involved, it's like, it's like why everyone loves Rocky Horror or Seeing the Room. Like, there's this expected audience participation to some point. If you can tap into that, man, they can go nuts. If you can find that one fan that's way too into it, or that one guy that just won't stop heckling you. We had a show at in Vineland this past month, and There was a kid in the front row that just went nuts when Spider-Man came out. And Green Lantern was just beating him silly. And Lantern was supposed to win. And this kid in the front row is Sonic, and he's got his ring, and he's sitting there like this, like chewing on it, just bawling his eyes out because Spider-Man was losing. So Spidey rolls out of the ring, and he goes, I need your help. I need your help, Sonic. You have to shape up. And he, like, tried to get the kid to stop crying, and then he grabbed the ring, and then, like, I ate it or whatever Sonic does. I don't know what Sonic does with the rings. He ate the rings, went Super Saiyan or whatever, and ended up winning. And then the kid just lost his mind in the best possible way. I'm like, there it is. Not at all to plan, but that was, like, the save of the day.
It was worth it just to have that, like, that's the
that
sort
moment.
Of magic moments that I imagine where it all connects and it all lives for. You live for it.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
So how do you recruit people? Is it, like, easy? Do you find it difficult in terms of getting people who have the physical ability and two, the interest?
Surprisingly, no. A lot of people have come to us and like, oh yeah, can I help? And they're like, all right, first you need training. You need to go here, do this, the other thing. And they're like, oh, I didn't know. But then we have people that are like, yeah, I just coincidentally happened to be here, but I've been, wrestling on my own for however many years. Here's a link to my Facebook fan page. Here's a link to my YouTube of some of the matches I did. Just give me a call if you think you can need it. And we're like, awesome. Killmonger, we literally met at a con on Friday. And he goes, oh, you guys are going to be here. I wanted to talk to you and see if you needed help. And he's like, are you good to go today? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I was already playing Killmonger. I just won't wear whatever. And met him Friday. He wrestled Saturday. Absolutely. A lot of it's just word of mouth. Like, we have a couple guys that do a lot of shows in Pennsylvania, and there's Susquehanna, so SWO, and there's like 6 of those guys, and they all know each other. And we got like 2 of them because they were personal friends of Mike's, and then they talk to their buddies, and they're like, hey, this guy's super chill. It's just all about basically having a good time. There's no stress about trying to, push your character. You're already guaranteed, fan support, and you get free tickets to a con. So it's just basically 2 hours of work, and then you get a free, day off. The guys were like, yeah, Aces, let's do it. And then they tell 2 friends, and then they tell, but no, yeah. So it's just basically people we've wrestled with on like an indie circuit that are also huge nerds, not just like, wrestlers for the sake of wrestling. And even then, we got like 2 or 3 guys that like aren't really, into anime or video games, but they're just, old vets. Vinny, I was training with him forever. He's been wrestling for, I don't know, like 15 years, but he's like, no, man, I just like coming out. Just, I think it's good to have like someone that's, even if I'm not wrestling, just to have like someone that's been there before, is a little older, can help you like talk things through or make sure you get things in order. And he goes, plus you guys get like these huge crowds, and it's just cool to see you guys, get your due. Because you put in all this work, and then you go out for like a regular indie show, and it's like, you make your posters, wrestling live at, Community Tabernacle, 6:00. And you go to the movie theater parking lot, and you put flyers under everybody's windshield, and then you make an agreement with the pizza place, and they put flyers on every pizza box, and you send out 2,000 flyers, and you get like 50 people in attendance. And then you go to a con, and you're like, there's already 10,000 people here, and chances are 1 in 10 will just show up because they're bored. And it's it's like a huge weight off your shoulders. You don't have to worry about, pulling your own audience or having to worry about turning a profit after renting a venue and a ring and food and help and then paying for tables and chairs. Whereas the con's like, listen, the venue's already here. The people are already here. All you have to worry about is getting the ring in, and we'll pay for most of it, if not all of it, because we're going to compensate you. But yeah, it's just pulling from buddies that already wrestle. A couple people never did. I never wrestled before. Like, I was in this first and then got into the wrestling scene. I'm trying to think who else. One of our refs was the same way. He was just a buddy of one of the guys that wrestled, and then he started refereeing, and he did that for a while, and then he started training, and then he did a match in October. And that's the other thing. People see that and they're like, even the refs have to know what's going on, because you have to it's like any official, you have to be able to actually enforce the rules, but you have to be able to follow the story, play dumb when you have to play dumb, have ring awareness, because like if someone's trying to set up a move, I mean, you have to, be alert and in position, but also you have to be able to get out of the way or see if they're setting something up, so that you're not either blocking the audience, blocking the camera, or getting between the guys when they're coming, at a sprint across the ring. I had to do a couple matches refereeing in October, and I'm like, dude, I never did that before. And when you're not the one wrestling and you're in the ring, that ring becomes so much smaller, because you're like, I can't move here, I can't move there, I have to be out of his way. But yeah, sorry, back to getting people.
That's an interesting interlude.
Like I said, a lot of it's just, people that you've worked with at another independent wrestling venue, circuit, and just saying, hey, I know you personally, I know you're into this kind of thing. Who's your favorite guy from DBZ? Krillin. All right, cool. I'm sorry you got to shave your head, but you're doing it, and
then it's go time.
Yeah.
And so I guess here's my sort of big question. If everything goes, like, let's just assume everything you want to do happens without any, what would be your plans, like your ultimate dream plan in terms of like would you want to do this once a week at like an auditorium? Would you want to be able to tour and go nationwide and go to every like mid-tier con? What would be your dream of like expanding upon this if just without any obstacles, or you had the time and financial resources to do everything you wanted?
All right, best case. It's gonna sound a little underwhelming, but it'd actually be pretty. I think it'd be pretty good.
No, I want to hear something realistic versus like, yeah, I want my own show on TNT.
Yeah.
I like realistic ambition.
Probably maybe 12 to 14 shows, like one a month, but every month. So like we're not having like these huge gaps between, or 3 shows a month and then nothing. So like one a month, and then maybe in the winter and in the summer go to like a big con, like legitimately huge con. Like my friend tells me she likes going to San Japan, or if we can get to MagFest, or like one of these really big draws, and do like 2 of them a year and get like some outside eyes on it, and just be like, all right, this is the big leagues, but then also have 10 shows a year at our regular, tri-state area for cons that have like 4,000 people, and you can just have like, you put on your show 2-3 hours, and then you can just relax and enjoy, the con. You have a free con pass for the weekend. But I also wouldn't mind being able to like travel a little bit. Like I wouldn't want to have to fly anywhere, but if we could have like maybe 2 road trips a year, that we knew were coming. Not kind of like a month before. Oh, we just got booked in Ohio. Get ready for a 12-hour drive. I wouldn't mind doing a little traveling while I'm still on the younger side, because a lot of us are getting. A couple people have gotten married. Nobody's really older than like 32. No one has like big families with like a bunch of kids or anything, so we're still pretty free. We're not nailed down to one place, so it would be nice to like travel, maybe see a con that I've never been to, or go to like a con and be like one and done. Like I mean, I wouldn't want to do a show there, but like New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Cons, like I know it's absolutely insane, but just to be there one time, I think would be like a nice life event. But like to have a show at one of these like large tier cons just once, and then maybe the next year have it at a different one, would be pretty cool.
I think that's pretty. It's a pretty good, fun, realistic goal to have like your big pay-per-view events where it's like people are going and then but still keeping that sort of small town charm.
Yeah, because then mentally you would feel like a real promotion. You got your 6 house shows, and then guess what? Pay-per-views coming. We're going to this big con, and then you naturally get a bigger draw, and then we can hopefully the con's budget would allow us to put more into it as well, or depending where we are, if you can even get like a celebrity in the ring. Like we've had Mega Ran in there, and that was like a huge pop seeing him tag with Mega Man. But like if we were at Mag, like say we were at MagFest last year, Mega Ran said he would definitely do it again. But if it happened to be when he had Xavier Woods, could you imagine having Cosplay Pro Wrestling and then the New Day comes out in the like you'd lose your mind. Like, wow, that's it. That is pinnacle. And even if it was just like a 2-minute swash match, it wouldn't matter. Just actually seeing that would just be totally insane and just worth the experience.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be like worth the price of admission alone. Were there any like dream nerd celebrities or YouTube personalities or wrestlers that you obviously New Day's top of the list?
Yeah, let me see. That would be a cool YouTube celebrity to come in.
Super Eye Patch Wolf at Magfest.
That wouldn't be bad. Trying to think like what would be a streamer like. Yeah, like you'd love to get like a streamer that would get like a lot of heat on him, but like people would be like, "Oh man, I just want to see someone punch him in the face." But it's like if you got him, like they would have to win. So like,
like Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah, that would be. Or I'm trying to think who would be if maybe not now, but if we had it like 2 or 3 years ago, if we had like. If you had Markiplier go against someone in like a furry suit and then just lose his mind, I think that would get a huge, get a good laugh. Trying to think, like there's a lot of nerds out there that, like I said, wrestlers that are big time nerds, and there's a lot of guys that are kind of semi-retired that, I mean, not for like super low level, but they'll do guest appearances, or they'll come to conventions and do meet and greets, and then just be like, yeah, can you come out, welcome everyone, maybe be like the guest of honor and just be the ring announcer or something, and then we're gonna throw him out of the ring, and then like if you had like Mick Foley there, and then be like, hey, can you just wave to everybody, say, hey man, how's it going, and then we'll throw somebody out of the ring and just put them through a table. Like that'd be like I got put through a table by Mankind. You know how awesome that is? Like, but yeah, it would be pretty sweet to have like a nice, like celebrity boxing, except it would actually be awesome.
Yeah, well, you never know as the word spreads. Well, so thank you so much for your time and giving me the overview about Cosplay Pro Wrestling and your journey of the past and going forward to the future. I guess before I let you go, any sort of really over the top stories or anecdotes you'd love to share? Favorite moments?
Let me see. Like I said, the Avengers of Anime Next after Infinity War was probably the biggest, like one of the best reactions we ever had. But it was my first match was me as Star-Lord. It was right after Guardians 2 came out, and I was going up against Solid Snake. And right off the bat, things came in. I was still trying to like get my bearings because I'd never done, a match in front of an audience. And I'm like, all right, okay. And he goes, all right, it's going to be the first, first takedown move. Like we were stood up, we were grappling, bouncing off the ropes. Everything was fine. And then I just went into a DDT, just gets my head under his shoulder, falls back, and then I fall on my face. Well, I fed my neck too hard. I kind of went through his elbow, and instead of breaking the fall on his back, I hit my head. And boom, immediately had no idea where I was. I'm like, all right, cool. We're 30 seconds in, and I've got like a minor concussion. And I'm like, cool, let me try not to forget the rest of this match. It might not even have been a concussion, but it was like enough to like get me like losing my balance. And I'm like, why couldn't this happen at the end when I could just play it off instead of right in the beginning when I'm still trying to get a feel for the ring? But no, it ended up going fairly well. I mean, it was definitely stilted being my first time in the ring, but it was at a small con. There was a lot of kids. Like I said, the movie just came out, so when I ended up winning, people went nuts, and it was quite a feeling going out there and winning on your
first not on your best legs.
Yeah, and especially coming out and winning your first match. Usually they make you take your lumps first. But it was a nice introduction, and since then I've won one match, so I'm like 2 and $1 million. But no, it was good. It was definitely a good time, and I hope that I can stick to it, get a couple more years out, and really grind hard in 2020. Put on a good season of shows for you guys.
Awesome. Well, I certainly hope I can help you get the word out and get more people to see what you do.
No, thanks again, man. This is awesome.